Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at Special Booster 2.0, and Special Booster 2.0 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be arguably the best deck out of that set in terms of overall strength and speed, and that's going to be the Lordknightmon X Antibody deck. So as far as what Lordknightmon X Antibody is doing, there's two primary ways that you could actually go about building the deck. There's more Knight Tribal, focused on a black-based and all of the different Knightmon-based synergies, but that's not necessarily the primary way that people are going to be approaching Lordknightmon, because we also have a purple base that we could play it in that's utilizing Anubismon's Dark Animal engine that we've had all the way back since EX5. And this is going to be the primary way people are going to play because it offers the deck the most speed and consistency compared to the black base. So as far as what Lordknightmon X is actually doing, because of this base, it's kind of being this weird aggro control deck where it's trying to stop the opponent from doing as many things as they possibly can, while also being able to aggress really hard, hitting for good damage and hitting for high numbers. So that allows the deck to have lots of versatility in terms of when you're going to be utilizing your cards and how fast you want the deck to move. But that doesn't mean that the deck isn't without its weaknesses. The biggest weakness, outside of it just being a stack-based deck needing to find all of its parts and pieces, is the fact that it doesn't really have that great of protections. The deck also does have a little bit of struggle against certain floodgates. Yes, it does have answers to them, but they have to see those answers in order to actually be able to out the floodgates, and sometimes those floodgates are going to be enough to slow down Lordknightmon, so that way it can't properly utilize all of its abilities. But outside of that, the deck is one of the best decks coming out of Special Booster 2.0. So going over the deck, starting off with the Digitamas, this is going to be looking really familiar if anyone's actually used to the dog engine, because we're still going to be playing 4 copies of BT6 Sunomon. So because the dog engine for purple likes to draw and discard a lot, Sunomon is just the best egg, rewarding us when we're discarding with an additional card draw, effectively replacing the card that we just discarded, cycling through the deck even faster to make the deck that much more consistent. Then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm going to be running 4 floodgates, so I'm opting to go a 2-2 split between Gazimon and Psychmon. Psychmon does have some small tiny anti-synergies with Anubismon, but we're not actually trying to utilize Anubismon, so most of the time it's not really that big of a deal, but stopping players from reducing their play costs make it harder for specific decks to be able to come back with, and Gazimon just stopping the opponent from gaining memory is really good at slowing them down. Then when it comes to the rest of the level 3s, it is just the rest of the level 3s that we kind of generally run in the dog package, which is going to be 4 copies of Goblimon. So BT14 Goblimon rewards us when we're discarding cards with a memory, which goes into why and how the deck is as efficient as it is. And Labramon is kind of doing something similar, except it's when we're playing Digimon by an effects, that's how we're gaining memory, which we still have lots of ways to be able to trigger to make the deck that much more efficient. Labramon also has a nice little upside at being able to cycle through our Dark Animal and Shaman traded cards, so if we actually need something that's in our trash, this is a good way to potentially grab it back. Then when it comes to the level 4s, talking about the dog engine a little bit more, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Doberman X Antibody because, of course, it's just one of the better cards for this deck, because it's when Digivolving ability allows us to draw 1 and discard 1, which helps set up a lot of our potential inheritable abilities. Then if this Digimon has Doberman or X Antibody in its Digivolution source, we could activate its on play ability, which we could still do because we are going to be playing the X Antibody option to potentially be able to go up into this card alternatively, and its on-play ability isn't too shabby, where our Digimon is going to gain retaliation until the end of the opponent's turn, adding some extra resilience and de-incentivization for the opponent attacking into our Digimon. Then the other upside to utilizing Doberman X is obviously in its inheritable ability, where it's doing the exact same thing as Labramon, having us have more ways to be able to gain memory by specific effects. And that's why I'm also going to be running 3 copies of Ogremon, because Ogremon is doing inheritably the same exact thing as the Goblimon, so that way we have the different levels that we can actually utilize these types of abilities. Then the upside for utilizing Ogremon natively is the fact that during your turn, when one of your effects trashes a card in your hand, you get to gain a memory. So this card is just a really good card to pair up as a good secondary body when we're going to be utilizing our main stack, just to make things a little bit more efficient. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 3 copies of BT18 Deltamon. So Deltamon is a pretty interesting card for this deck. Yes, we do have a Gazimon to actually make Digivolving into this card that much more efficient, but we actually kind of don't care about Digivolving into this card most of the time because of the versatility on how we could utilize this card. Because its native ability triggers when we play it, when we Digivolve into it, and when it gets deleted. And we get to discard a card from our hand off of either of those conditions to delete one of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, which is absolutely insane of an ability, because if we pair this up with Goblimon, if we're Digivolving into it, then it's basically a normal Digivolution cost because it's still interacting with cycling through our cards. Then the inheritable ability it gives us isn't too bad either with the blocker ability, so we have even more defensive capabilities for what the deck is trying to do. Then when it comes to the level 5s, again, most of it is going to look fairly similar to a lot of other purple decks running the dog package, because we're going to be playing 2 copies of Cerberusmon. So Cerberusmon has an on-play and when Digivolving ability, where we get to return 1 Dark Animal or Shaman from our trash to our hand, again, being able to recycle whatever piece that we kind of need that's already in our trash. Then on top of that, it also has a nice inheritable ability, where during your turn, once per turn, when an effect plays out one of our Digimon, then one of our Digimon gains Rush for the turn, so that way we could use that Digimon we just played off of our abilities to be that much more aggressive with. Then, to go with the Cerberusmon, I'm obviously going to be running Cerberusmon X Antibody as the primary level 5. So what this card is doing is it does have an on-play ability where we get to play a purple level 3 Digimon from our trash for free. Then on top of that, it also has a when Digivolving ability where we get to draw 1 card. Then we get to trash 1 card from our hand, so that way it triggers all of our discard-based synergies. And if this card has Cerberusmon or X Antibody in its Digivolution source, then we also get to activate its on-play ability to play out said level 3, which is really important for how the deck wants to set itself up. And the fact that, again, we're playing the X Antibody option means that we don't necessarily need the level 5 Cerberusmon to be able to consistently trigger that secondary part to its when Digivolving effect. And then the inheritable effect is actually really important for how this deck works, because when we attack with our higher stage Digimon, we get to delete one of our other Digimon, which this Digimon ideally just played, to be able to unsuspend this Digimon, so that way we could use it to gain extra attacks and put that much more pressure onto the opponent. And then the last level 5 is a tech spot, so it could really be anything you feel like you want it to be. I'm just going to be utilizing 2 copies of Bastimon from EX6, because the Scapegoat ability isn't necessarily too bad, having some alternative forms of protection in case we aren't able to go all the way up into our level 6. But the main important part on this card is its when Digivolving ability, basically acting like Cerberusmon X Antibody, where we just get to play out a purple level 3 Digimon from our trash for free, adding to the overall setup for what Lordknightmon X wants to do. then the inheritable ability isn't too bad either, where during the opponent's turn, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, we get to play out a level 4 or lower purple Digimon from our trash for free. So if we are utilizing our cards properly in a defensive manner, then we still have the ability to trigger this inheritable. But when it comes to the level 6s, for the most part, it's going to be dedicated towards Lordknightmon and Lordknightmon X. But before I get into those, I just want to go over the 2 tech level 6s that I'm running, because the 1 copy of Leviamon X Antibody is still like a really powerful card to use, just because its ability from the trash during all turns is that strong at being able to grant basically a free Digivolution into this card. Then it natively has security attack up +2, so that way it could just hit for high damage already without the need for any other help. So it just helps put that much more pressure on closing out the game, and its when Digivolving ability is just more removal, and that's kind of also why we're also going to be playing the one of Anubismon from EX5, because this card was so good, it did end up getting limited, so why not just run it still? So when we Digivolve into this card and during our main phase, once per turn, we could discard up to 3 cards from our hand and then play out a purple Digimon from our trash and reduce the play cost by 3 and further reduce the play cost by 1 for each card that we discarded. So this is just allowing us to be able to play out almost anything and make our cards have that much usability, while also removing the opponent's Digimon, because when an effect plays one of our Digimon, this effect is not limited to once per turn, so the more Digimon we play out by effects, the more we could trigger this effect to delete one of the opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon or draw a card, which is still overall pretty good. But the meat and potatoes and the main level 6s that we're going to be using is going to be the 3 copies of the BT18 Lordknightmon and 3 copies of BT19 Lordknightmon X Antibody. So Lordknightmon has this on play and when Digivolving ability, where we get to play out a level 4 or lower Digimon from our trash for free. So again, that could trigger some of our inheritable abilities that want Digimon to be played out by card effects. Then it also has a nice secondary ability. When any of our opponent's Digimon attacks, we could choose to redirect the attack to a Digimon with Royal Knight in its trait, which is mainly going to be Lordknightmon itself. So this acts as a really good defensive backbone while also giving us an extra body to be able to play around with. And that kind of feeds into what Lordknightmon X Antibody is doing, because this card has collision and piercing native to it, so that way it can already just swing, force the opponent's Digimon to block, and deal the damage because, well, we're most likely going to be bigger than the opponent's Digimon, so that way they're going to be taking the damage. So that's already a powerful combination of abilities, but we're not done there, because it's when Digivolving ability itself allows us for each of our Digimon to de-Digivolve one on one of the opponent's Digimon. So the more we flood the fields, the more we could de-Digivolve the Digimon to make them weaker in case they are already stronger than us. So that's already just a huge anti-tempo swing, but on top of that, then one of the opponent's Digimon until the end of their turn can't Digivolve, so we're essentially locking them out of the potential to even come back, because their Digimon essentially isn't going to be able to do anything because it can't Digivolve. And then what's making this card absolutely extra bonkers is the last ability, where during all turns, while we have Lordknightmon or the X Antibody option in this Digimon's Digivolution source, all of your Knightmon texted Digimon gain the Alliance ability and plus 3000 DP, which does include itself, so on base, this card is basically a 15k, which is really strong in comparison to most other Digimon in the game, and on top of that, it also has the Alliance ability, so when it's swinging, we could use the bodies that we're playing out for free to be able to gain even more DP and an extra security attack. So you can kind of see the domino effect of all of the different things that we want to do, because Cerberusmon not only sets up the extra body, but also gives us the ability to use that body to sacrifice and multi-attack with. So we could multi-attack deck with Security Tech Plus, and if we have any other additional cards on our field, then it's just going to make it that much worse for the opponent, especially since we could go up into this pretty quickly thanks to the efficiency of the memory gain and draw and discard from the rest of the dog engine. Then when it comes to the level 7s, you could kind of just run whatever level 7 you want, but because we are the most broken purple deck in the game, or one of the most broken purple decks in the game, might as well just play one of the most generically good purple level 7s, which is going to be the 1 copy of Shine Greymon Ruin Mode, just to try to make the opponent's life that much harder. But as far as the options go, the main reason why we don't need any Tamers is because our options are just good enough at gaining us all of the value that we need for when we're trying to combo off. So that's going to be thanks to the 4 copies of Purple Memory Boost and 4 copies of Wisdom Training. So I do know that in December we are going to be getting the Scramble cards. So if you want to work in the Scramble cards, it's just an easy swap off of 2 Purple Memory Boosts to run 2 copies of the Purple Scramble. But essentially, both the Memory Boost and the Training cards are doing similar things at digging for the cards that we want and helping us with our overall memory efficiency on a later turn thanks to their delay abilities. Then the last option of the deck is going to be 3 copies of X Antibody Protoform because, again, this card is just that good that there's no reason not to run it because it also is treated as an X Antibody option, so that way it triggers a lot of our Digimon's abilities without actually needing the base form. So what this card is doing is also helping with the efficiency of our Digivolution, where we get to have one of our Digimon Digivolve into an X Antibody traded Digimon with the reduced cost of that Digivolution by 1, so that way we can go up our stages that much more efficiently whilst putting an X Antibody in its sources, so we can trigger all of our Digimon's abilities and get full value. Then the other insane part is how reusable this card is because its inheritable ability that it's giving our Digimon is basically just allowing us to get some resources back, so it really makes it harder for the opponent to try to deal with our cards. But for the most part, that's just it for a really solid base or foundation for what the deck is trying to do, centered around being able to draw and discard and play out Digimon by card effects, which is something Lordknightmon already wants to do. And it's not like what I have built is the final say. The deck is going to constantly change and evolve based on the different tech cards that you want to run and the cards that you'll have access to. So because purple is just such a deep color with a whole bunch of good synergies with all of the different mechanics and traits that it's playing with, there is just a wide variety of cards that you could potentially pull from depending on what you feel like you want to be using. And like I said earlier, it's not like the deck isn't without support. We know in December we're going to be getting the Scramble cards as one of the best inclusions to put inside of the deck to act as a really good comeback mechanic, so that way if we're ever down, we're not exactly out. And that's part of what's making this deck so strong to begin with, is the overall speed and efficiency in which it's able to work with. But that's all I really have to say about this deck, so feel free to tell me your thoughts about the deck down in the comments below, and while you're there, you might as well leave a like and subscribe if you found this video to be helpful and informative. And with that, I hope to see everyone in the next video.